Greetings, everyone. Are you having frame rate issues in your favorite video game, or when you're running on battery power? Is the life tanking out of your battery too fast? These could all be symptoms of having multiple graphics cards and basically using the wrong card at the wrong time. Today, many laptops, especially things like gaming laptops and a lot of desktops, now have multiple graphics cards. Like, for example, I have a laptop here. It's got a integrated Intel graphics card, and it's got a NVIDIA Discrete graphics card. Selecting the right graphics card for each situation will improve both frame rate in your various graphically intensive applications, and it'll improve your battery life. Today, my plan is to identify a method of controlling which graphic card gets selected for use with which application and at what time in a Linux operating system, or OS. Valuable skill for your Linux toolbox. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that the procedure I'm going to go through here is working for me with my Fedora 42 KDE Plasma install on my MSI laptop. But Linux being what it is, this could differ significantly depending on your distribution and your hardware. So take this with a grain of salt. So shortly after switching to Linux, I noticed that my laptop wasn't switching GPUs or graphical processor units, graphics cards. It wasn't switching them automatically on a regular or predictable basis. Of course, I had the same issue with Windows where, yeah, they switch sometimes they wouldn't switch. So it really wasn't anything new on Linux, just a little more pronounced. Of course, not every computer has more than one GPU in it, but some do. It's becoming more common. I guess more with like gaming laptops and with like desktops. Gaming laptops are called hybrids. They've got an integrated GPU and a discrete GPU. The integrated one is usually part of the laptop system board, and it's usually a lower powered version. They put a discrete one in, and they can call it a gaming laptop. Switching from Windows to Linux, I had to manually configure how my laptop selected its GPUs and for what purpose. It was a bit of a chore for me to figure out a way to do it reliably, but once I got it working, it was it's like, why didn't I do this before? Not that difficult, actually. Again, as I said, there is a caveat. What I'm doing works on my laptop, MSI Raider GE76, I think it is. It's got an Intel processor. Intel Iris Graphics is the integrated graphics card, and the discrete graphics cards and NVIDIA. I will say that, well, what I'm not going to cover in this is how to install your graphics drivers. I'm assuming you've already got that working. It depends a lot on your distribution. Most user-friendly distributions like Linux Mint do that stuff for you automatically. If you're using a distribution like Arch, I expect you know how to get your graphics drivers installed. No, this video's focus is going to be on deciding which GPU you're going to use for which application and when. So yeah, I'm focusing on switching between already running GPU hardware. Yeah, you should have already installed your drivers. I mean, I'll talk about it a little, but it's not the point of this video. And as to the problem at hand, I want to offer a couple alternatives for a couple different ways to do things, because everybody doesn't have the same workflow. One solution might not work for you, whereas another might. So yeah, I'm going to offer a couple of different ways to do this. Well, technically a couple of different ways to actually execute it. It's all the same way, but yeah. Yeah, I said I wasn't going to do it, but let me talk just a little bit about GPU or graphic processor unit drivers. Our common manufacturers, the ones you're going to run across most often, are NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel. I mean, there's a few others, but that's mainly laptops, or not laptops, that's mainly tablets or phones or stuff like that. And there's going to be variations on the install of each of the different manufacturers based on your Linux distribution. So you really need to check out the documentation that's available. But there's another complicating factor also. Specific drivers are going to be dependent on the age of your GPU. Like, for example, in Debian-based distributions, you have a legacy GPU for NVIDIA and you have a common or current GPU for NVIDIA. I mean, at some point, they drop support for older cards, and if you want them to work, you need to use legacy drivers. That's just the way it is. The other big choice is open source versus closed source. And I guess this mainly applies to NVIDIA. There are some alternatives to the closed source drivers. They work. It's just a lot of times they don't work as well as the closed source drivers. It just depends on what you're doing. The other thing I want to talk about is the Mesa 3D graphics library. This is the OpenGL API. And we're going to be using a couple elements from this. Specifically, we're going to be using the command glx info to see what's going on with our GPUs on our system. And we're going to be using the environmental variable DRI prime to determine which GPU we're going to use. And before we get too heavily into that, we'll take a quick look at their website. So we'll just type Mesa 3D in our search engine, and we'll see what we come up with. All right, we'll go to the home of the Mesa 3D graphics library. You can see they got the OpenGL, they've got read more. But yeah, this is the Mesa 3D website. You can look around here, like, for example, if you want to find a particular driver, or I should say the environmental variable we're going to use, you go to User Topics, Environmental Variables. It'll give you a list of all of them. You can scroll down till you find the DRI prime and read what it does, what it's for. So here we can see it's a default. The default GPU is the one used by Wayland or Xorg, or one connected to the display. This variable allows you to select different GPU, which is exactly what we want to do. There's a little additional information about how this is done there, and we'll be using that later. But yeah, you can find information about what's in the Mesa 3D graphics library. But yeah, this is what we're going to be using to, at least in this case, to switch between graphics cards. So the next major question you're going to want to deal with is, which graphics card am I using? If I've got two, do I know which one? Is there a way to tell? And yes, there is. Let's take a look at, first going through the desktop, graphical way. In KDE, there's an info center. I'm sure other desktops have similar programs available. This is found under help for KDE. And this basically shows us a lot of our system parameters. So if we go ahead and select it, we can see here, again, it's like a plasma version. But we get down the sheet a little ways, you can see we've got graphics processor 1, Intel Iris Xe graphics, and graphics processor number 2, NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3060. It's a mobile processor. If no other instruction is given to applications when they launch, they're going to use the first processor. In theory, you can auto switch, but again, I found both on Linux and Windows that doesn't work incredibly well, at least not yet. I mean, it does happen sometimes. So if you don't have an equivalent program, or you're using a Windows manager, for example, you can always go to the command line, the terminal, and you can do it that way. It's not particularly hard, and you shouldn't be afraid of the terminal. We're going to use the lspci command, which is basically going to list all our PCI devices, which our graphics cards or GPUs are. A lot to go through here, so we can thin that out a little bit by, we'll use the lspci, but we'll do a pipe, which is a vertical bar, the output into grep, which is a filter. And we're only going to print out lines that use the capital VGA in them. And there we have our two Intel graphics card and our GeForce RTX 3060 NVIDIA card showing up. Now, as to which card is actually in use, Well, we're going to use the glx info command for that. However, you can see this one puts out a lot of data as well, so we're going to have to filter that. So again, we'll use the pipe into grep with a capital E. This allows us to use a lot of multiple search parameter options. We're going to look for OpenGL renderer or OpenGL vendor. Again, the dash capital E lets us use some more advanced search options. And there we have our string Intel, Mesa, Intel, Iris R. That is the active GPU right now. Now, yes, I know some of you are going to say you could have used grep, egrep instead of grep with a capital E. So let's just run that one by real quick, and it basically gives you the same results. So this tells you which graphics card you're actually using. Okay, so I'll give you multiple ways to do this. So let's talk about case one. And you might ask, what is case one? So case one is where you want to use, you got your laptop or your desktop or whatever is plugged in. You're not worried about power. You're not worried about batteries. You want to use your discrete graphics card or GPU for everything. This is case one. We're going to have to edit a file in the /etc/ directory, and it's called environment. You can do it with either a graphical text editor or a terminal text editor, choice up to you, but you do need to have root access to edit this file. I'll go ahead and do it in kwrite. We'll open the file, and then we're going to type in capital DRI underscore capital PRIME equals 1, and we're going to save this file. Of course, it's going to ask for a password. Like I say, this is a system file. It's an etc, so expect that. And done. Now, if you want to do it through the terminal, again, you can use either terminal editor, but for example, here we'll use sudo with VI. You could use nano, you could use vim or whatever. And you can see we could edit our file here this way as well. But since we've already done it, we don't have to worry about it. So then we just need to restart everything and see what happens. Well, once everything's up and running, it's time to check things out. If we open up our info center, we can see now that our graphics processor number 1 is our RTX 3060, and our graphics processor number 2 is the Intel Iris. They've switched around. Now we're using the NVIDIA processor for everything. And if you want to do it from the command line, lspci grep, that still looks the same, but if we do the glx info, grep capital E, oh, look at that. I need to blacklist the GPU drivers. Those are the open source NVIDIA drivers. They're not installed, so they failed, but you can see we're now using the installed NVIDIA GeForce drivers. So that is the active graphics card. But yeah, I need to blacklist the Novena drivers. And since we're running a NVIDIA here, I can use the NVIDIA SMI command. And you can see down here at the bottom of the printout that we are indeed using the NVIDIA graphics card and how much GPU memory the various processors are using. Okay, now for case number 2, you want to use your your discrete GPU for specific applications, but if for everything else you want to use the integrated GPU, and this would be like you want to save battery life when you're out on the road or what have you, and you don't want to be running that high-end GPU all the time. We need to go back into our environment file, and we can either delete the line or we can put a pound hash mark in front of it to make it a comment, and it'll ignore it. Again, you can do that with a text editor, whether it's graphical or terminals, really doesn't matter. Now we can go ahead. I want to verify here that when I rebooted, I switched back to the Intel, and that's now our primary or integrated GPU is now our primary GPU. And now what I want to do is I want to go into my KDE menu. I want to edit the menu, and as far as I know, this should work with a .desktop file for an application where you can do it directly on the application. But we go to, for example, here we're going to graphics and then Blender. Since that does 3D rendering, you might want to use the GPU for that. And then under the section where it says program, we're going to add or DRI prime equals 1 space, and then we're going to save. And then we're going to launch Blender, and if we use the NVIDIA SMI, we can see that Blender is indeed using the NVIDIA card, even though the Intel card is still the primary card for everything else on the computer. So yeah, we're just using it for that one program. And again, if you go to your applications, you'll find a lot of .desktop files. You could go in there where it says execute, and you could add this in at that point too, and it should work also. Now, I can hear people already saying, wait a minute. What about my games? Like I said, I load games through Steam. They generally don't show up in my media. They only show up in Steam. So, yeah, let's take that example. Let's open up Steam. We'll go to our library and we'll take a look at one of my favorites, Fallout 4. We'll right-click on the entry in our library and we'll go to Properties. And in the Properties, if you're in the General tab at the bottom, you'll find Launch Options. Here is where you put the capital DRI underscore capital PRIME equals 1 or DRI prime equals 1 space Fallout 4 launcher.exe, and this will indeed make this program run with your NVIDIA or your discrete GPU in my case. So we'll fire it up just to demonstrate. If we go back into the command line, we can see now that Fallout 4 is actually using the NVIDIA graphics card. And we can open up Lutris. Lutris has you can do the same thing in Lutris, but Lutris also has another option available to you. If we right click on an application and we right click on the application. Come on, get in there. So if we right click on the application in the Lutris and we go down to configure, this will open a window, and if we go over and click on system options, you can actually set your default graphics card here for anything EA app launches. So as an example, we'll fire up EA, we'll start Mass Effect Andromeda, and you can do the same thing you did. If you don't want to do it that way, you can come in and right click, go to properties, and you get your DRI equal underscore prime equals 1 here in the advanced launch options as well. And once we launch it, we can see that Mass Effect Andromeda is now using our NVIDIA card. So that's our two situations. One, you want to run it all the time, or two, you just want to run it for specific programs. Okay, that's pretty much what I wanted to cover in this video. I'm hoping you found it helpful. If you've been having issues with, like, for example, frame rate stuttering or not being able to get what you think you should be able to get on your game on Linux, it could be the wrong GPU selected, and hopefully this will teach you how to select the right GPU. There is another program on the GNOME. I need to look up what that is, but I know GNOME has their own program for doing this. I think it's called Switcheroo Control, but since I don't use GNOME, I'm not too familiar with it. But someone else out there is, they can comment on it. But for me, using the Mesa environmental variable DRI underscore prime equals 0 or 1 or whatever your graphics card numbers are. That works just fine. Or adding it to the Etsy environment. That works fine too for everything. It's going to be up to you what you want to do, but yeah. I hope this helps some people if they've been having issues with either battery life or frame rate due to graphics cards. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll see you all next time around.